Microsoft Word's Table of Authorities feature cannot produce a Points and Authorities format. However, you can create a Points and Authorities format with a custom table of contents that uses both heading styles for the points and table entry fields for the authorities as sources. If you've never heard of Points and Authorities, it's a combination of the Table of Authorities and Table of Contents. Instead of listing the cited authorities in alphabetical order, a Points and Authorities format lists each authority in a different order. According to Wikipedia, some courts require each authority be listed in order of appearance under the heading or subheading it appears within, while other courts require cases to be listed in order of importance or underneath the description of the issue they support. If this is something you have to do frequently, I recommend that you get a specialized Table of Authorities plugin to produce this format. A Word plugin such as Litera's Litigation Companion, which now includes the tool formerly known as Best Authority, or Thomson Reuters Drafting Assistant, useful for those with Westlaw subscriptions, will make this task more automatic. However, if you don't have access to these tools, or you only have to produce a Points and Authorities format occasionally, you can produce this format with a creative use of the Table of Contents feature. If you don't have to do this often, or you're otherwise unable to justify or approve the cost of a specialized plugin, you're not stuck doing it entirely manually. You can bypass the Table of Authorities feature altogether by hacking the Table of Contents feature with a combination of heading styles and TOC table entry fields. Legal Office Guru reader Patrice sent me her example showing how she did it. She said, "I took the Brief Builders Workshop course on your website. In Illinois, we now have to do a Table of Contents and Points and Authorities under the argument heading. We have to do a combined table. The Seventh Circuit uses the type of points and authorities you have in the lesson, an alpha list of cases sorted by what type of citation it is. Have you had to do a table of contents with case citation under the heading? I was able to get it to work, but I cannot format the font correctly." The requirement, as best as I can ascertain it with some online research, is based on Illinois Supreme Court Rule 341, specifically Rule 341H1, which says that each brief shall contain a table of contents, including a summary statement entitled Points and Authorities, of the points argued and the authorities cited in the argument. This shall consist of the headings of the points and subpoints as in the argument, with the citation under each heading of the authorities relied upon or distinguished, and a reference to the page of the brief on which each heading and each authority appear. Notice that the requirement for organizing the authorities in the order of their importance has already been struck out. In Patrice's TOC hack, the points part of her table is driven by styles, while the authorities part of the table is based on table of contents entries. So her table of contents is configured like this. Her argument section is actually styled as a title, whereas her first level subheading is styled as heading 1, and then the second level subheading is styled as heading 2. So her table of contents is configured like this. She's got heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3 at TOC levels 1, 2, and 3, but she also has the title style as TOC level 1. I suspect that she has done this because she wanted these two levels of headings in the TOC to be at the same indentation level, but that's just a guess on my part. My preference, frankly, is to just use the heading styles, but that is just a preference. And as you'll see as you experiment with this, both of those configurations actually work very well. But just we need to make sure that the table entry fields are also designated as part of that table. To set this up, go to the References tab and click on Table of Contents, then select Custom Table of Contents. Within the Table of Contents dialog box, choose Options. Make sure the box next to Styles is checked, and the heading styles you're using are listed at their corresponding TOC level, i.e. your heading 1 should correspond to TOC level 1, etc. And check the box next to Table Entry Fields to ensure your table of contents will pick up not only your heading styles, but also your marked citations. Citations marked with manual TOC entries, as opposed to using styles to build the entire TOC, will look like this with Show Hide turned on. And by the way, this is Show Hide. This portion between the curly brackets is the table of contents, or TC code, starting with the beginning curly bracket, the TC, then the text of the entries between the quotation marks, then /FC and /L9 to signify the type table and the level. We'll get into that in more detail when we start marking citations. If you're formatting a brief, you should know how to use styles to consistently format the various level headings in your documents. It's literally point and click. If you need a basic primer on how to format heading styles and apply them to your headings, click here for a free lesson from my Lawyer's Guide to Microsoft Word Styles course. Once you've applied styles to your headings, the points part of Points and Authorities, it's time to mark the actual citations. But unlike a regular table of authorities, we're not going to mark them with Table of Authorities TA fields. Instead, we're going to mark them with manual TC, or Table of Contents fields, aka table entry fields. You see, the normal way of creating a table of contents is to use styles to designate the various headings and their levels, which is what we're doing with the points in our Points and Authorities. However, it is possible to mark TOC entries similar to the method you use to mark citations for a regular table of authorities. Although the Mark TOC entry command isn't available on the ribbon by default, I've actually added this one and we'll talk about that later. You can use its shortcut key Alt-Shift-O. That's holding down the Alt and Shift keys and pressing the letter O simultaneously to start the process. So I'm going to select this case, and because I do not want to pick up the end of paragraph marker or the period at the end of that, I'm going to hold down my Shift key and press the left arrow twice so that my selection is only the case name, and then I'm going to press Alt-Shift-O. Pull that over here where we can see it, and you notice that it has already put the entire entry, including its formatting, into the entry field in the Marked Table of Contents entry dialog box. Now the table identifier is going to default to C. You can actually have multiple tables of contents within a particular document. I'm going to leave it there, and because I've marked the rest of mine in this particular document as level 9, just to keep it sort of all the way down up underneath the levels for the headings, I'm just going to make that 9. And then once I do that, I can click Mark. And it jumped down a little bit, but let's look at what it's done. It's basically taken that case name and placed a TC code after it within these curly brackets. And again, it starts with TC and then a quotation mark and then the text of the entry that's going to appear in the table of contents, and then /F for the table identifier and /L for the level in the table of contents. Now you can leave this dialog box up as you mark additional cases. You can just keep scrolling down through your document and finding any cases that need to be marked and just continue to mark them. Once you're done, you can click Close. Now if you want to add the Mark TOC entry command to your ribbon as I've done, here you can use the technique that I demonstrate in this YouTube video that I'm showing you here, and if you click on that card you'll be able to go directly to that video. Your brief probably has at least one authority that's cited multiple times. Unlike Table of Authorities, however, there's not a different procedure for marking subsequent instances of an authority with a TC code, because the table of contents will list that authority separately for each individual occurrence, as opposed to gathering all the citations together under one line item. Often, however, the second or subsequent citation of a particular case or other authority doesn't repeat the entire citation, e.g. just citing Harris or Penn cite. You'll want to be alert to this and either include the appropriate citation within the entry field or edit the TC code after you've marked it. I'm going to use Harris as an example because I do know that that one has more than one citation. Now here it is unmarked. I'm going to select that and then do Alt-Shift-O. And you notice that it has put this in here and it actually put it in as a pin site. So I can correct it here. And because I can see it over here, I can see what the citation should be. In other cases, I may have to make a note of what it should be. So I can correct that here so that it has the full citation here within the quotations where it doesn't really have it here. Or, and I'll mark this again, and then if I were just to simply mark it, and I forgot to do it as level 9 there, then I can look at that and go, oh, I need to correct that pin site, so I know it should be 17, brand 1993. So you could do either one of those things and it would actually correct that. I'm going to go back to my table of authorities, or table of points and authorities rather, and then refresh it, which I'll show you in a moment in more detail. And now I see Harris here on page 8, and I also see Harris here on page 10, both of them with the full site. If you do any further editing in your brief or mark additional authorities, you'll want to update and refresh your table of points and authorities. To do that, you can either right-click anywhere in the table of contents and choose Update Field. If you're confident that all the entries are there, you can do Update Page Numbers Only. I generally opt for Update Entire Table. That's one method. Or you can click anywhere inside the table and press the F9 key, and that will bring up the same Update Table of Contents dialog box. Either of those will completely refresh your table of points and authorities. If an entire category of entries, all of the authority citations, for example, have the same problem, e.g. indentation, that's something that can be fixed via an adjustment to the underlying style. To figure out which style controls a particular level of TOC entries, click your cursor into one of the entries and press Shift F1. Then look to see what's listed as the paragraph style. Now notice how the text of paragraph style is hyperlinked. You can click that hyperlink to go directly to the Modify Style dialog box to change not only the indentation but the font style and size, etc. Now notice that it actually went directly to the hyperlink style. Sometimes if it's confused about which style you want to do something with, it will pick one and it won't be the one that you want. So we're going to look for TOC 9 and select that, and then click Modify. Then in the Modify Style dialog box, Format, Paragraph. Let's just say we want to 2/3 of an inch, just for the heck of it. And then click OK. Click OK again. And when I click Apply, you're going to see something a little disturbing. That's okay, we're going to fix that. You notice how, weirdly, this one that I actually had my cursor in, suddenly the dot leader has disappeared. That's okay, it's easy to fix. I'm going to click in this one just underneath it that does have one. Something just went wonky with the formatting. And I'm going to use the Format Painter on the Home tab. Click that, and then click inside of this entry and restore that dot leader. It's a bug. What can I say? Again, if I go to this level, you notice that the paragraph style is TOC 2. So I'm going to do the same thing here, except go to TOC 2, go to Format, Font, and I can say Regular. I could have also unchecked or unclicked the bold here. And it may, yes. I don't know why that is. I have a sneaking suspicion I know, but I don't know. But just do the same thing here and just restore that. So that is how you could fix some formatting issues at the style level within your table of points and authorities. If the problem is the actual content of any of your entries, then it's a little more complicated. The easiest things to fix are things like pin sites within case names. Just like with the table of authorities entries, correcting pin sites, misspellings, and other minor text errors within authority entries requires editing the TC code that creates the TOC entry. It's not difficult at all once you understand how the TC fields are structured. So let's look at this example here, the Gupta case. The easiest way to go to that entry is to hold down my Control key and click to jump down to it. Now, whenever you mark any text with a table of contents or TC field, that field will start and end with curly brackets. The text of the entry will appear within your table of contents the way it's reflected within those inside quotation marks. The letter after the F denotes which table the entry goes to. You can have actually multiple tables of contents within a single document, but it generally is going to default to C. And then the single digit number after the L denotes at which level TOC entry this is going to appear. Now, knowing all of that, you can easily make some minor text adjustments within the code to change the text of the entry or even which level entry it is. So, for example, we want to take this pin site out. So you notice that my cursor is within those quotes. So I'm actually modifying what would appear within the TOC by taking out the comma 583. And then I can make that a lowercase o, which would make a little bit more sense here. And so once I go back to my table of contents, I can refresh it, and you notice that now it doesn't have the pin site, nor does it have that capital O for ob in Regents, or just before Regents. Now, if your court requires that you place an asterisk before the names of your key cases, you can simply place that asterisk just after the opening quotation marks. So if you wanted to put that here, you could put the asterisk there, and it would actually appear in the table of points and authorities when you regenerate it. If your court requires that you list the authorities in order of importance or group them by authority type or in some other order, you'll need to convert your table into text and reorder the entries yourself. If you attempt to edit the text directly, your edits will disappear the moment you regenerate the table. That's because this is actually a field. So if I do Alt F9, that's a field. And depending on your settings, that regeneration and the edits disappearing might happen automatically whenever you reprint the document. So be sure that you're 100% finished editing your document, then click your cursor inside your table of points and authorities, and use Control-Shift-F9 to convert it to regular text. You can now edit the text normally. However, you're not going to be able to regenerate your table of contents unless you reinsert it using the steps I've already shown you. Now I'm going to back up for a moment and restore this as a table. I'm going to show you one thing that's a little bit of a caveat here. This table, I'm going to regenerate it, custom table of contents. And the way I had it before was I unchecked this use hyperlinks instead of page numbers. And then went in and did that. Now the advantage here is that when I do Control-Shift-F9, it just goes straight to text. It's no longer a field. The disadvantage of doing it that way is that if I hover my mouse over here, these are not hyperlinks, so I can't go directly to that section by clicking that hyperlink with Control-Click. But if I do it the other way, which is custom table of contents, leave that hyperlink enabled, oop, I've still got Alt F9 turned on. There is my table. And you notice I can now control click to follow that link, but if I do Shift Control F9, number one, I have to do it twice because it did the first entry the first time and then did the rest of it. And then all of this now has hyperlinks. And I'd have to go through and remove these hyperlinks, assuming that I could, or reformat this text. So a little bit of a trade-off there. You may want to decide whether it's more important for you to be able to navigate this with hyperlinks while you're editing, or be able to get a clean conversion of this into text at the end of the process so you can reorder these entries. So again, that was just the choice between using hyperlinks, which I did in the second example, versus not using hyperlinks when I created the table. Hey, if you're in a state that requires a points and authorities format, I'd really like your help. Please scroll down to the bottom of this post and upload a sample of what your court requires using the form shown here. I'm especially interested in any formats that might be different than what's been demonstrated here. Who knows, your format, not your example, I would never post anything confidential, might be featured in a future tutorial.